Going into Call of Duty WW2, I was expecting to either hate the game or be very disappointed. Right before playing it, I also finished the campaigns of World at War and Black Ops 1. Both of them are considered legendary Call of Duty games, and in my opinion, especially Black Ops 1, the gold standard in storytelling. When you search YouTube for videos of COD World War II, the majority of them is not speaking too fondly about the game. Most of them are either disappointed by it or straight up hate it. It was a flop in sales, and its community on Reddit, despite being quite large, is pretty much dead. Despite all that, I always wanted to play it, but just never had the opportunity until recently. One thing that drew me to the game were its absolutely amazing looking cutscenes and beautiful environments. I am the type of player that can still enjoy a game with a bad story, so long as it has, for example, a very detailed and beautiful world. So when I went into COD World War II, I was not expecting to be enjoying the story or having a good time in that regard. Based on all the negativity and hate surrounding the game, I was really thinking that this will be a boring adventure. So imagine my surprise when I finished the game and immediately felt the need to restart it. I had the overwhelming feeling of not wanting to leave the story and continue playing. Now part of this is of course the unfortunate fact that Call of Duty campaigns generally tend to be very short. Oftentimes they lack the time to fully shine or let new mechanics fully shine like in Cold War. However, one thing they certainly don't lack is great cinematography and presentation. World War II especially has a very strong movie-like feeling, partially due to the fact that they straight up copied scenes from movies like Saving Private James Ryan, but also due to the fact that the cutscenes look extremely lifelike. At times almost photorealistic. The amount of work that must have gone into creating these cutscenes must be insane, and I respect them for it. The story of World War II is surprisingly good. After hearing all the hate, I was expecting complete garbage, bad storytelling, bad dialogue, and a boring, uninspired campaign in general. But it's far from bad, and anyone calling it horrible is straight up lying. If you want a horrible Call of Duty experience, play Call of Duty Ghosts, then come back and compare it to World War II. You'll feel like you reached a higher level of enlightenment. It is true that it takes the safer route. Its story lacks the brutality and shock that World at War offered. It also doesn't let you commit war crimes like shooting prisoners or surrendering soldiers. And this was one of the sticking points of the people that hate this game. The complaint that it's too safe and lacks the rawness of World at War or even Black Ops 1. The question here in my opinion is, however, whether playing it safe is actually a bad thing. Does it actually hurt the gameplay experience, the experience of seeing the story unfold or the storytelling in general? Is a safe game worse than a non-safe game in this context? In my opinion, it heavily depends on the game itself, and in this particular case, not at all. Call of Duty World War II doesn't really suffer from playing it safe. It's still able to tell an entertaining, Hollywood-like, action-packed story, a story that happens to play during the Second World War. This is not a bad thing. All the hate and criticism revolves around the fact that World War II didn't portray the war in the same fashion as predecessors did. It didn't show any war crimes or brutal realities of war like the execution of unarmed prisoners or surrendering soldiers. It didn't show what the Germans did to Jews or the Soviets did to the Germans after the war, which is absolutely false anyway, as there are moments in the game where American unarmed soldiers get burned alive by the Germans as they plead for mercy while the Germans just laugh. Yet the critics seem to brush this off, or maybe they haven't even played this far. And to a certain extent, this criticism is justified. I would have wished for them to have included more crazy, fucked up shit that shocks the players. But just because they didn't, doesn't mean that the story is bad. I also don't understand why people assume that a game like this absolutely has to portray those things. It doesn't. This is, after all, entertainment. And if Call of Duty World War II does one thing right, then it's the entertainment. It is very entertaining and feels like a Hollywood movie. Why exactly is that such a bad thing? people fail to realize that Sledgehammer Games had no obligation to tell such a story. Maybe they just wanted to tell a movie-like story, with characters that they thought were interesting. This ridiculous idea that they had to cater to some crazy fanboys that wanted a game like World at War is just stupid. Creative freedom should be the most important thing when it comes to stuff like this. We already have a World at War, so why should they do a game like that again? Why not let them tell a new story, one that is simply fun, well told and entertaining? Well, I played the story. I played it twice, searched for all the collectibles and did all the achievements. And if the story of World War II is one thing, then it's definitely not bad or too safe. Some fucked up and unexpected things do happen here. Sure, not as often as in World at War, but then again, this is a different game. A game that had a completely different goal. Its goal was to tell a heroic Hollywood story. And that's totally fine. We don't need to be constantly spammed with depressive things. Every year we see games, movies, TV shows and songs get darker and darker. All of that has an influence on your brain and it's not a positive one. There was a level in World War II where you had to defeat a group of Germans holding up in a hotel. After you've cleared the hotel, you descend into the basement where you find a group of starving civilians hiding. They are afraid of you, women, children and old men and women. You offer them some chocolate, probably the first they've seen and tasted in weeks. You get the job of getting them out of there, safely and unharmed. But once you're out, one of the women realizes that her little sister is missing. She gets hysterical, starts screaming and wants to run back inside. But there's little time. Fresh German troops are closing in and might soon be at the hotel. You get the job of running back inside and getting her. You find her hiding, but as you try to make your way out, German soldiers come busting in and start searching the place. Now you have to quietly leave without them seeing you. Who knows what they might do should they discover the two of you. This is a tense moment, taking all of your attention. And while you try to quietly escape, the child is making noises, whimpering and moaning, fearful of her life. As you hide behind the door, her teddy bear falls to the ground. She's hysterical, but you manage to keep her quiet as one of the Nazi officers discovers the teddy bear. Just as he's about to investigate, the Germans get attacked and start rushing to meet the enemy, giving you the opportunity to flee. Long story short, you manage to deliver the girl to her sister. They take seat in the back of an army truck, together with all the other refugees. This is it, you think, mission accomplished and civilians saved. But all of a sudden, two German soldiers appear and start shooting up the truck, deliberately, not accidentally. You kill them and hear the horrifying screams of a child, the same child you just saved. Her big sister, all that she had left, was lying on the floor, multiple wounds, blood leaking out of her lifeless body. As the truck drives away, the crying and screaming of the child, echoing through the whole block, starts to slowly die down. The war goes on, you get new orders, you have to move. You're still a soldier and have a duty and orders to follow. But as a player, what just happened leaves you perplexed. The sudden loss of life and the blatant disregard for another human's well-being is brushed off so quickly. But not because the developers didn't care or were incompetent. They brushed it off because this was the worst war in human history. Things like this happen daily and were often much worse. In another mission, your platoon walks into a trap and gets bombarded by German artillery. All of you start running to safety, unorganized and chaotic. Men die around you, they scream in pain and for help. One soldier gets his legs blown off, crawling to safety only to be blown to pieces by the bombardment. How is this playing it safe? It's a horrifying scene, but most gamers brush it off. And why do they brush it off? Why do they ignore this horror? Because our society and especially gamers have been desensitized by movies and games. We get the chance to kill people all the time in video games. GTA lets us run over other humans with our car while listening to the Eye of the Tiger. An epic moment for sure, but do we ever stop and think about what exactly we're doing? How we can just kill others and then act like we're different from the NPCs of the German soldiers we kill in World War II games? Of course I'm overblowing this thing, and killing fictional, non-existent NPCs is nowhere near as brutal as killing someone in real life, nor is it even a morally bad thing. We're not killing living beings, just a bunch of pixels that get respawned anyway. But the fact that we demand more brutality and gore from Call of Duty World War II just shows how spoiled and desensitized we have become. Sledgehammer Games' intention here was to tell a story from the perspective of soldiers. Soldiers didn't have time to ponder over what they've just seen or what just happened. They had to quickly adapt and move on. This reality might not subvert expectations or be as shocking as World at War, but it was a reality and still is. But enough about the story. Let's talk a little bit about the graphics and gameplay. In this case, I will not separate these two topics into different sections, as I believe that they go hand in hand within the context of this game. Let me explain. First of all, the visuals are amazing and insanely detailed. Especially the attention and level of detail here is surprising when you consider what kind of game you're playing. This isn't BioShock or Dishonored where details are important. This is just a yearly Call of Duty FPS. And yet interiors, when you happen to be in them, are very well designed and even stop you to just have a look. There is one mission that illustrates this perfectly. It's called Liberation. Now I'm not going to go too deep into it, as I'll make a separate video just about this mission, but it is certainly one of the best missions in a Call of Duty game, period. It's also a very unusual level for the franchise, at least up to that point, as Cold War has done something similar, no doubt influenced by this level. In Liberation, you take control of a female French resistance fighter infiltrating the German SS headquarters in Paris, right in front of the Notre Dame. You get fake papers with a fake identity that you as a player actually have to memorize, as there will be moments where guards or certain characters will ask you questions, testing and checking your identity and whether you speak the truth. Your character will answer in German, very good German by the way, and slowly make their way to their target. The whole mission is very tense despite the fact that you're not shooting a gun or doing other typical action moves. It's also extremely detailed. The lobby of the police headquarters is full of people talking, asking questions, walking around and looking at you with suspicion. Now I don't want to say too much about the level as I plan on doing a separate video on it, but it definitely blew me away. The visuals in Call of Duty World War II are immersive and amazing as hell. Everything looks natural and you never get the feeling that something looks off or has been placed at the wrong spot. There have been multiple occasions where I just stopped in the middle of a mission to take in the graphics and detailed visuals, while my comrades were screaming at me to finally move on. This is the first and last Call of Duty that had a bit of a different gameplay system. Health, for example, does not regenerate automatically. You have to find health packs and use them when needed. This, especially on harder difficulties, means that you have to be extra careful, as the Germans deal lots of damage and you can be dead quite fast, so running around like Rambo isn't the best idea. Another new feature is the option of taking limited supplies from some of your fellow soldiers. One might have an extra health pack, another might have extra ammo or grenades. These guys won't be there to always save your ass, but when they are available and fighting beside you, they definitely are useful. All in all, I really enjoyed my time playing Call of Duty World War II and actually had my expectations blown. I thought this would be a cheap, shitty game with a bad story and bad gameplay, but it quickly turned into one of my favorite Call of Duty games. I highly recommend the story if you're looking for 7 hours of fun, great entertainment and action.